My name is Chanel Stryker Boykin. I am the daughter of Hillary Stryker and Ernestine Clark. My father's parents were Victor and Julia Stryker, and my grandfather, Victor, his mother, and his parents were from Barbados. His mother's name was Ellen Sandy Manny, and they are descendants of the Braithwaites. I know for me, I think the Liberia that my parents grew up in, I know that it's very different than the Liberia that exists today. And so the only ideas that I have of this place are these romanticized stories of these, if we're being completely transparent, well-off children, right? My dad and my mom were in similar situations in that they, grew up with decent lives, right? In this amazing place where they felt free and, all of these things. And so the transition from Liberia to America, I can only imagine. The only thing I always think about is I can imagine how difficult that was, how much, like any immigrant parents, like I just think that to be able to take a trip from a whole different country to another country and have to live there and learn the ways and be like those people, I can't fathom, what that's like. But the only thing that I know about Liberia, like there's so many, specific stories. If I sat here and tried to rattle them all off, we would be here forever. But I do know that what has always made me love the country so much is the stories that my parents taught me, or that my parents told me about, like I said, this beautiful, amazing place that they grew up in. And, I always wanted to, I still do. I want to go, and experience it for myself. And like I said, I know it's not the same. I know it won't be the same experience, but just how much they love the country has always resonated with me. And I think it put a love for the country in my heart as well. I identify as Liberian American. My mom always used to say, she's raising Liberian children in the diaspora. Like, we're not American kids. And so, we were very much African children in America. And so I was raised with my roots. My parents always make sure to instill those same values and traditions in me. So, yeah, even though I've never been to the country, I feel very connected because of the things that my parents told me and how they always spoke so highly of the place that they call home. So, to be continued. I don't think that we should give up on it. If I'm honest, I think my dad shares so much of himself with people that and I don't know why that question made me emotional. Self with people that the same person that I know him to be, giving heart, very loving and caring. I think a lot of people know him to be that way too. Yeah, I could say so many things about him. He's an amazing person, a really great father, a great grandfather. Yeah. So when something like really big happens, he always said, "Dog it." He can always say, "Dog it" when something happens. So now I've picked it up with something for, something big happened, or we want to gossip and laugh about something. I can dogging you and not believe what happened. So he loves to say that. Yeah, I think that would be, I know he used to say, "That one beat the beaters." That's a saying that he says as well. Like I said, my parents are so Liberian, but in America, like, I don't think I missed a beat when it comes to Liberian dialects, colloquialisms, all of that. Like, yeah, that I grew up with that. So no, nothing, no specific Liberian advice. Like I said, certain core values and traditions and things like that. They definitely instilled in me. And I try as much as I can, with my kids to try to keep it up, even though they are very American kids, they're very American, they're very new age, and things like that. But I also still, like my parents did for me, remind them often that they are different, and that's not to say, I totally embrace and love the fact that I get to be African and Black, you know what I mean, at the same time. So it's like the intersection of the two cultures is amazing, especially I think being Liberian because of the history, like with us and Americans. I feel like we're all the same. I don't think that, Black Americans, I think that we're all the same. I don't think that there's any difference, but I know that the divide was a boat ride, right? So literally that's what it is. And so, or a return, right? That's the only divide. So again, I totally embrace the fact, like I'm totally for the culture, but then I also know that I'm an African woman, right? And so I try to make sure to bridge that for my kids in some kind of way. I hope, we're doing that. I'm married to an American man who fully thinks he's Liberian. So we kind of keep it going that way as well for the kids. And yeah, just embracing both cultural aspects and letting them know that these two things are who they are, both of them together. And like I said, I was lucky enough to have parents who were that. We weren't just only worried about African social issues, but also my parents both were activists, like at the core of themselves. That's just who they were. So we always were on the other side of history, learning about all the different things going on, following, different civil rights movements. Both I remember the first time I went to the Million Man March was with my dad. I was still young because I was still living in Maryland at that time. And he took me, I want to say it might've been the first one. And he took me with him to the Million Man March. I remember always doing like culturally, cultural activities in DC, shopping on the street for the dashikis and things like that, so definitely I try, like I said, I try to do the same thing with my kids and keep them involved in both cultures. The most important thing that I would say that I learned from my father is patience and forgiveness, I would say. My dad is a very patient guy. He doesn't, he does not allow things to get him upset, get him angry. He takes his time to think about things. He's also very rational. He takes his time to think about things before he does them. It's the way he always moves in life. Somebody else would call it playing safe. But I don't see it as playing safe. I see it as he is definitely somebody who is going to it's very important to him the effect that he leaves on other people, or the impression that he leaves on other people, not in the sense of he cares what they think about him, but in the sense of he always wants to be, and if I have to be honest, be Christ-like. He wants to be nice. He doesn't, want to treat people anyway but with respect. And I know, like, even as a kid, like that was very important. When I would get in trouble, it wasn't, I want to make you feel bad, right? Because you got in trouble, or I'm going to chastise you. It was always, I respect you, but respect yourself, kind of thing. So, yeah. And I think that's why his words always held weight for me, was because there was a mutual respect. He has a way of demanding his respect and making sure that you you understand um, where he's coming from because he respects you first. And he does that with patience and love. Um, yeah, and love. I definitely learned that from my dad too. He's very loving, like I said before. Um, so yeah, yeah. And so education was very important. Always was. It was never the and for a long time I thought it was the course of the education. I thought it was the kind of education that wasn't what it was. As much as so I think that's where like the intersectionality came for me, and the way I was raised was that I was raised to be very free thinking. So whatever you decide to do, um I don't care if they agree or not, there was always emphasis on be the best. And not only be the best, you do it with honor, right? And so education like was always paramount. I remember when I was younger, like my mom would make me copy out of the thesaurus. I was reading the Britannica when I was like 6, 7 years old, when I could learn how to read. And like I said, we always had news articles. I watched the news with my parents, and we would sit there and we would have open conversation about it. Again, it was more philosophy than it was like book, right? Like book smart. But it was definitely for you to think and make educated decisions for yourself, be able to speak well. That's very important. That was always important to my parents, to make sure that you present yourself well. And being the lineage that we come from, because I'm a generation removed, right? They got to experience that. So they saw these people, these educated people doing these amazing things, right? And they definitely followed suit with that, and they wanted to make sure that their children would be able to carry that legacy the right way. So my current career, I am a labor support specialist and a student midwife, or a doula, or birth worker, whatever you may have heard it as. I do childbirth education, lactation education. And yeah, so I have my own business, and I also assist through a nonprofit here in the Atlanta area. Um, how did I get here? I started off, like I said, education was really important. I wanted to be a nurse, straight out of school. Wasn't the path for me. I, worked in corporate America in project management and in administrative roles for about 10 years. At one point, I was a dental assistant, been all around the world, and here I am. And I think it's, speaks truth to power that you can't run from what you're called to do. For as long as I can remember, since I was young, a child, I've always had a matriarchal spirit, right? Kind of very motherly, always. And so, I'll, birth has always been something that was intriguing to me from as young as I can remember. I used to watch this show on TLC called A Baby Story. I've probably seen every episode of that show. And I would never, for any birth or baby show come on TV, I wanted to watch it. And so, I didn't know, and I'd heard about doulas years ago, but it was something that it looked like only women in New York or rich white women could attain. I didn't know that there was a whole undercover birth world of Black women, and that we were we are the creators of birth work. We were the midwives and all of that. I didn't know that history to begin with. The most important part is making sure that they understand where they come from. Um, my mom always used to say, who you are and whose you are, and so that's what I make sure that they understand. That I have, like I said, I have 3 sons, we're raising 3 Black men in America. And that can be, kind of daunting sometimes, a little overwhelming. especially because following the trend, I've raised my children very free thinking. And so free thinking Black people in America is automatically kind of an issue, you know? So you got to figure out how to, um, our current battle with our preteen is like figuring out how to let him know that, like, you're still a Black man. So yeah, you're free thinking, you think this way, and you know, you may want to say what you think first, but you always have to think twice, right? And so that's where these new kids don't understand, and preferably they won't have to navigate life so much like that, right? Like where he has to always be thinking twice, looking over his shoulder, and you know, instead of just being free, right? Yeah, so that's difficult, because with the truth about what it really still looks like, you know, especially because we live in the South, and also though knowing that, like, if we don't raise him to be free and to or raise them to be free and to think for themselves and to be able to make decisions and to navigate situations, then they may miss something very integral, right? Like that's to me, that's not what our ancestors wanted. They fought so hard for us to be free, right? Like they want us to be able to live freely. But then also still having to say, but you can't do this, or but you can't say that. You know, those kind of things is very tough. But like I said, whose you are and who you are is very important. And making sure that they realize what always kept me grounded was knowing that I was different, right? Like, you know, the people that I came from were different, and I had to honor that. Um, and so that was always kind of like my real back. It's like, you know, but you're different. So make sure you act accordingly. And so that's kind of what I try to tell my kids, like, okay, yeah, that was John doing at school, but you have to do this. You know, you have to move this way. And I'm thankful that my husband is very supportive in that. Like I said, him and my mom got to spend a lot of time together before she passed in 2011. And so she raised her Liberian son. And so he follows, you know, he's very okay with following traditions and the way that, you know, things are. But like I said, I'm actually a lot more liberal than he is. He's also still a Southern man. My favorite is neck and neck with potato greens and palm butter. Um, yeah, it's neck and neck with potato greens and palm butter. I can't and check rice and gravy. Check is probably like if there was a table of palm butter, check rice, I would put it all on my plate, but in order, I would start with the palm butter, then I would put it potato greens, down with the check rice. Yeah, those are my three favorite Liberian foods. My mom cooked well, very well. She was a bassa and gribble woman, so she, you know, she could throw down in the kitchen. So I inherited that gene a little bit. So I do cook. I can cook palm butter. I can cook check rice and gravy. I don't make Liberian food like that as much as I should. But definitely, you know, every few months I might, you know, get the urge and I'll make something. Yeah, so I would love to go to Barbados. I'm sure it's probably just as beautiful and similar. So yeah, I would love to do that. Not being afraid to say that I'm Liberian or I'm Liberian American or my parents are Liberian, whatever. Just keeping Liberia in the, you know, in the forefront. And like I said, banding together, and the country that those people fought so hard for and built, you know, we shouldn't just let it go to waste. Definitely get together and try to do something to honor our ancestry and our legacy. We might not all be able to stay in America. So, you know, we have a place, and we're blessed to have that. And I think that we shouldn't take it for granted.